Talk Show.
It's the Daily Talk Show, episode 558.
Our brother from
Jeremy
another mother.
Carne.
Welcome, Jez.
Hey. You can clap.
We like clapping. Just lifts that energy. It's not normal, but it feels normal. It feels right, doesn't it?
I was kind of clapping. Is an appreciative clap.
No, I think that there's a huge amount of confidence to be able to clap, especially because sometimes in a group setting they might be like, I want to thank everyone, Tommy and Jez for being here. Like you should. It's a good opportunity. To
When someone walks in the room, it's nice to just clap. It just changes everything.
Oh, definitely.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm all right. Thanks. Yeah, I'm cruising. I'm slow.
Slow. Is that good? Is that good or bad?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Do you think if you were the other way, you'd say it? Like, I'm fast. Like, I'm... How you going? Yeah, fucking
busy.
real good.
I reckon probably you're pushing back on the whole busy thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like we always want to say we're doing something and everything's happening, where it's like it's also okay just to like be slow and not have much, like just be, taking things in.
So what is it? What was the opposite of slow for you?
Consistent, not turning my brain off. Always wanted to do something, and at the end of last year, to go straight into I had a pretty bad panic attack, and then I had to I realized that was seeded in being like not feeling like I'm not good enough unless I'm contributing a thing, and so I stopped contributing things to like tell my brain that I'm okay not to.
Yeah. So you and I first became friends. It would have been like 2012. We're working at the same radio station, and then, funnily enough, I think it was 4 years ago that we went around the city. It was like this time 4 years ago that we went around the city filming a video around like how we can help, how you could help people.
Oh yeah.
I watched that on YouTube, and then you went into a CPR course.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Okay, you're making.
Yeah, but I mean,
lots of content, contribution.
No, but I think that's the whole thing, right? I think Jez and I have always been on that path of wanting to self-develop, wanting to create, wanting to understand what the next thing is.
I'll take it back. How many years? When did you have? Remember when you came to my personal training studio?
Yeah,
and we did this is like before I even knew what live was, and you were doing live.
This isn't radio.
You were doing a live show.
Oh no, no one's watching.
No one's watching.
It's
What
like
year was
kind
that?
of zany Wayne's Worldy kind of internet show, and
I had no understanding of what was going on, but we had
that was
fun.
so
Remember?
fun. It was really fun,
And we couldn't do it because we wanted to do it from the personal training studio. But back then the internet, like Wi-Fi was so shit, and we couldn't run the cord long enough.
Right.
And so we
It's
ended
always
up doing
the cord, isn't it?
Oh, dude. But like
the amount of things that haven't been recorded because the cord's not long enough.
Yeah.
Dude,
it's
and
the wrong adapter.
I mean, you've been creating for a long time, so
Yeah, it's hard.
It's time to be slow. You've done enough.
I
Chill
think
out.
it's like it is like not. I don't feel like there's enough encouragement in our culture that perpetuates mindfulness or like slowing down. I feel like, or at least I feel like I've always been encouraged to do more and do more, and then I think it's just I found it very, very challenging to do little. Or
Is it a
do nothing.
safety mechanism? Because I guess like doing more means that you can pay rent. And so whenever we think of slow, we think of not being able to pay rent, not being able to honor our commitments.
Yeah, true. That's a definite contributing factor.
Was it something that you considered? Like, did you just have to create a scenario where it's like those things are off the table, so you could create the level of safety, so you didn't need to find that moment of panic every month trying to make ends meet?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I feel like I've been really lucky with my work, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so I feel very privileged to be in a position where I don't need to. I'm still doing work, but it's not a hectic amount of work.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, it was much harder than I expected it to be.
was so the contributing to the world through content. I know you've had a job for a significant amount of time with Hamish and Andy as the content producer, online content producer. What connection is money to the creation and putting out into the world?
What do you mean?
So, for instance, you've got a job, so you could say like most people create now. They put irons in the fire. They're putting out content to land something to create money from this thing, right? So you go, I make to make over here, money.
Yeah.
Whereas you've had a job where you were making money, So what was it linked to money, the creating and putting out into the world, or was it
those side hustle type of things?
Yeah, it's more side hustle stuff. Yeah, so it's like producing an album or doing like a rap record or doing a live internet show or doing a band or a podcast. And I think I just love that thing. I think since I was like 13, 14 when I did my first band. It was a punk band in the UK, and I was just had the enthusiasm to create the website and HTML code it, GeoCities. Like this is like nearly 20 years ago, and it was that kind of. That's what I love about the internet. I think is that you can do anything and no one's red taping it.
Yeah.
So I think I've always had that thing, but I jump from project to project so much that none of them really have enough time to fly. So the Hamish and Andy work has been my longest consistency. We've been with them nearly 12 years now, and that I think that's the area that I'm obviously strongest in is producing comedy or short videos.
What have you learnt about consistency working on H&A?
That you like good work is like when you say how to do a good thing, it's such a simple thing. Like the nuances of like times and beats in a narrative, you guys know about this, like with video editing. Initially, like it takes so much trial and error and things to fall over before you realize how to make things work in terms of telling a story in a video. And I think the longer you do it, the simpler you realize it is. And so sometimes when you got an intern or someone you're working with and you educate or you're telling them like, this is how I do it. Might not be the right way, but this is what I learned. You often feel like, fuck, I've done a lot of work for not really much knowledge. Yeah, it doesn't feel like much knowledge, but it's potent and it's yeah.
What's that second simplicity idea? We've got Dr. Jason Fox who's coming on the show. New Year's Eve, is he coming on? And he talks about something called second simplicity, which is basically you have things that are simple and then you have complexity. So things that are like really hard. And then you have second simplicity, which is doing all of this work, all this complex work, fucking up and trying all these different things to arrive at what the answer is, which is still very simple. I guess it's that point of like understanding story beats, understanding how those things work.
Yeah, you have to saturate the doors, try everything to really be convicted. It's all research, isn't it? It's like that's all life is just continual research. What are your boys' biggest learnings from doing this podcast, or like what characteristics of producing this show have like stuck the most?
In terms of the consistency thing, how we feel about it isn't necessarily how it's being perceived. So you could feel like it wasn't great. So when it maybe relate to feedback, it's not necessarily how it's perceived by an audience or someone who is a fan of the show or someone who comes into contact with it.
Because everyone's in a slightly different headspace and taking something different out that you didn't see or something.
Yeah. And so, a good idea is that whole concept is subjective because someone will interpret as good and someone will interpret as no good for them. And so when it comes to feedback, when it comes to how you feel about what you're doing, and so it will ebb and flow. So it's not necessarily going to feel great all the time. And so you're in the game of riding through it being great, it being high, and everywhere in between.
It almost feels like we've done 558 drafts. So I think that whenever you're trying to work with this idea that you're working on this complete final piece, that's where it becomes a problem. And so by saying we've committed to doing the show for 10 years, by doing 10 years, we've got heaps and heaps of drafts that we can work on. I think that that's probably a mechanism to make sure that we don't suffer from perfectionism.
Great.
We don't even suffer from the potential hype that can come around things. So it's like if you're just doing a draft, someone's feedback you're okay with because you know that it's in draft form. Whereas when you show an edit to someone and you have said in your mind, this is the final version, this is it always is a little bit more painful getting feedback. And so I think even within our client side of our business, what we do is bring people in earlier into the process and we show them the the process and the iterative approach to it. And what that means is they can then have a hand in creating it rather than it just being this thing that we show at the end and then have to unwork a bunch of stuff.
That's a really strong learning, I reckon, because it's like the biggest trip up with creating anything is that perfectionist thing is the whole 80-20 principle, isn't it? Like it takes you the shortest period to get it to 80% of an idea, and that 20% refinement takes a fucking waste of time.
I think you and I both love the launch phase of anything, right? It's that idea of like having the Instagram account, having the domain name, having the logo. Right. And so
it feels complete.
And so a part of, I guess, with the Daily Talk Show, it was also about not adding too many other brands and things to it. Right. So
letting it build slowly over time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that you could easily say, be a network, do heaps of things, have heaps of shows. And that's like what my natural sort of inclination is to like add more. And so if you take that off the table and say, I'm only going to add to the Daily Talk Show and we're only focusing on this brand and we're not getting excited about the shiny object outside, what are the shiny objects inside that are all adding to the same thing?
Using the term hack might infer that it's a quick way to success or something, but the hack really is doing it every day. I think about if I did something when I was young every day, it's like it gets overlooked because everything is so shiny, and maybe everyone thinks that they're going to be the success story where it does just pop. But that's the unicorn these days. It's the Tom Cruise of the internet, right? Tom Cruise, there's very few people that will ever be as famous as him. And so for online, the success that we look to in other people is so far from the reality. The percentage of us being able to attain success of a Logan Paul for 99.999% of the world is, it's not going to happen. And so that's where it is. It's so easy to look left and right. But if you can stay focused, the hack is just stick at whatever it is consistently.
Yeah, I love that. Ryan, my friend, were talking about this the other day, and like if you're in love with the process, you're invincible because it's only when you're in love with the outcome that, it's such a waste of time. If you look in lineal time, like the outcome is like a second once you publish it or whatever, and the process may be like, hours and hours. So if you have that love of the process, then, I'm speaking to the convert, I'm sure you know that, but like that's one thing that I love is like, and then it never feels like you need to attain. Like I think to be in love with the process, I find you need to be in love with the purpose of it. Because if you're doing it for just a feeling of giving someone a sense of joy or liberation of thinking or whatever, or make them like crack open their brain a little bit or just make them giggle, that's that feeling of contribution makes you happy, doesn't it?
What's something you've stuck to personally that you're proud of?
In terms of
just it could be
work or personal,
maybe outside of work, just personal. Is there anything?
I think meditating every day for like 8 years.
That's a fucking solid effort.
I think that, and then for 6 of those years, it was twice a day. That kind of really, that consistency gave me a lot of grounding and ability to witness myself, a great level of self-awareness and awareness of how other people are motivated. I think that was I'm really proud of. I think also consistently being in my relationship with my partner in terms of bringing myself with love and attention and not like always trying to feel good and looking for different things. I find that more and more, and with family as well, like that a really nourishing aspect to my life. For me, I think relationships and experiences are the most valuable thing in life. So I think I've particularly learned that this year is like that feeling of bringing another person a smile just by being in the moment and being happy and playful yourself and curious and looking for laughs. That is the best feeling in the world. And I used to want to always capture those moments, and because like producing funny stuff or fun stuff, should I say? I didn't like the word funny because it's like that's what feels like an outcome, but fun is a process orientated thing. You're again invincible when you're focusing on just having fun, and no one can say you're not having fun because it doesn't really matter about the critic.
Can not be funny.
Yeah, but you can not be funny. Yeah, exactly. It's a subjective thing, but fun isn't. So. I mean, fun's still subjective, but at least it's an internal orientation.
The only thing we promise is the daily bit And that's pretty invincible, right?
yeah, true.
It's like, oh, we said we would do, like we didn't, like you can't get mad at that. And so what was if you were to look at the week leading up to the panic attack, what were the signs, or what was the state of mind and the state of the world that you'd sort of created that could now, looking back, being telltale signs?
That's a good question. I think it was the same thing before depression. Like I got hit with pretty bad depression about 4 years prior to that, and that's why it's actually more than 4 years, probably 8 years ago actually. But that's what meditation got me out of. I just Googled how to fix your brain, and that was the main answer. But then with anxiety, it was like this. I think I was ignoring my effect on my partner at the time, and ignoring my effect on what I was again deriving my sense of worthiness from. It was forever external, and I resolved a lot of that when I did all that meditating. But this was like, I think this was a deeper wound that was linked to my childhood, and I grew up in like a pretty extreme Christian sect. I talk about extreme like as in like not like sexually fucking you up or anything. It's more like super intense psychological spiritual manipulation, which is a very hard thing. It's a very specific nuance it's only been like I started a support group for a few years ago, and that like it hearing people's stories about how they like it's I mean, I only say that to say that it's a hard thing to explain, the little pocket of psychological
was
trauma.
Was it guilt? What was the feeling that you got from that experience? Is it guilt? Is it like, what do you think that sort of psychological
extreme rejection and conditional love, extreme, like almost like you feel bipolar, like you got a part of yourself that's bad and evil, and you got a part of yourself that's really good, and you reject the bad side of yourself with this intense narrative week after week. And we had this also weird mechanism that was all about sharing vulnerably and laying your life down. So this notion of if I'm doing anything in my life right now, if you're in the church with me, like I could say, oh, I really enjoyed what I did at work this week, but I got a bit much out of it. And again, this will sound weird, but like you're very hyper self-aware of your motivations of things, and if anything's selfish, you automatically speak it out. And people reflect how you've been selfish, or like where God can take that position, or this notion of God, which I suppose is just more this idea of loving this energy that's apparently got a personality and emotions, which is absurd. But like when you're born into it, it's crazy how much you're like, oh, well, this just is the reality. And you look at everyone outside of the church is like selfish and other, and living for their own cardinal sins, essentially. So
that week before, is it? So it's the external. So it's I guess to connect those, it's the feeling that you're not complete, or that
I'm not enough as I am, and I'm not okay as I am. So it's kind of like this. I mean, I love my family to bits, and I've got no problem with anyone still in the church. I want everyone to be happy and that it's working for them. But for me, I had an immense sense of going from a place, and I never really resolved this until my panic attack really brought it out. That's what my psychologist said. It was like my nervous system just shake it, like or suppressing, and then your nervous system just pisses it out, and you literally it's like you feel like you're going to die. It's the worst feeling in the world. Like I'd take depression over anxiety any day. Like you feel like your nervous system.
What a sort of game show would that be? So you got to come on, all right, Jeremy, welcome to the show. Which one are you feeling today? Here we go. It's landed in the middle, bit of both. It would be a nightmare. But so you would pick. But the anxiety affected you in it. Is it just because it was so?
It's debilitating, and it's also very frightening. Like depression's like more of like a sedation, and you want to take your life, and that is a fanciful thing in comparison to this darkness. But anxiety is like. It's I guess a higher frequency, or just shoots your nervous system, and it's just awful. It's such an awful experience, and it's so hard to, again, that's what this year's been about. It's like trying to rewind my brain to not have anxious thinking, and and you see what the triggers are and you see what the remedies are, and you just slowly have to do the work to remedy it. And it is clearly something you can remedy. I believe that these illnesses like pain impressions is something we can resolve. It's just finding the tools and the community and the support and the friends to facilitate that, and not. I'm a firm believer in not band-aiding it. Because
what do band-aids tend to look like, do you think?
To me, they were medication or distracting myself with drinking or partying or anything that's avoiding shutting your eyes, being still, allowing that feeling to come up, as ugly or as horrible it is, and allow myself to just process it and be with it and not run away from it. And then it comes and through you as quickly as the emotion of laughter does. Like we just don't like the negative feelings. And so if we treat them as with the same attitude as a positive feeling, they pass just as quickly as a positive feeling too.
I heard Sam Harris recently say that anxiety and excitement are a very similar internal response. And so it's just a different framing.
That's interesting.
When you're scared, you could get anxious, when you're excited. And so it's just this complete different label on it that shifts, but internally, like from a physiological response, it's like the same thing. When are you, before a panic attack, is it living with anxiety daily, feeling it, and then when it happens, a panic attack, it's a extreme amount of it?
Yeah.
So is it just constantly happening and then boom, or nothing and then boom?
It was nothing and then boom, and then residual anxiety. Like I think I'd always, like, my mum's a bit anxious, and I knew I had anxiety, but it just all came to the surface unexpectedly. Or something happened that in my personal life and my relationship that just triggered it, which essentially was a feeling of I'm not enough, and then it just brought up all the feelings of like feeling like I'm not enough by my family standards because they used to have deep relationships with me, and now that I'm being selfish or bad or don't have their worldview, or this sense of rejection and not being good enough, and all that pain I kind of mirrored into my relationship, and had that kind of weakness. And then anyway, so the anxiety was just a reflection of that suppressed pain coming up through my anatomy, and it was like breathing fast. It was. I think panic, there's a difference between, I can't remember what defining the difference, but there's a difference between like having a panic attack and just having anxiety. Panic attack's like where the anxiety just, like, I think what you said, like just climaxes. And you can do very real things to, one key thing I've learned of anxiety is like, I can't resolve it on the level of the problem. So for me, it's in my mind, and I can't really do cognitive behavior therapy effectively. I got to kind of sink down into deeper parts of my body or my chakras and feel those energy centers and be still in that, and then inform my mind from that deeper beingness in myself. And that's what like meditation is like for me. It's like sinking down into deeper states of what I am, and then allowing that stuff to just piss on up out through me. So
does that mean so if you're having this, is it like, okay, I need to not be necessarily communicate, like say you hear it's like, well, if you're angry or whatever, just give it like 5 minutes, because you can definitely enter into this thing of just like, like I'm on a roll right now, like no fuck you, fuck you, and it's like it can be quite energizing,
it's very
exhausting,
and
like but it also feeds into that whole world that you've created for yourself in that moment. So is it realizing that whenever that happens, that's actually not, there's never a good outcome in that regard.
Exactly.
And then so what do you do? What can you do? What do you replace from a communication within the relationship sense? You're feeling that from someone, or you're feeling like you want to enter into the anxiety you're feeling. What do you do?
Breathe is the biggest one. And that's what I mean, like in terms of having to focus on a different energy center. It's like your chest or your gut, and doing this thing that the SAS do before they go into, or the Navy SEALs, same people or different country, but they do before they enter like a intense military operation. They just do this breathing thing where it's 10 in, 10 out, 10 seconds in, hold it for 10 seconds, 10 seconds out, hold it for 10 seconds, and you jump start your body. It's like the Wim Hof stuff. It like jump starts your body into a state of de-excitedness.
Because you've always been in an area of that self-development, faith, trying to find, if there is an answer.
In my consciousness.
Yeah, if there's an answer, you've found a few answers in your life and then realized potentially they're not, or like I feel like you've had a lot of experiences. Going to a psychologist, do they challenge part of that, of the idea of finding a single truth or a single answer?
Yeah, that's a great, interesting area, isn't it? Like, because I think there's commonalities in all these people's worldviews. And the more you research, that's what I think life is about to me. That's what I'm most excited about, is just research. Like, so right now I'm not meditating much at all because I want to have more groundly, like drink a beer, get drunk, like just more earthly experiences, which a lot of meditation teachers don't do. They once you start, the more you meditate, you just ramp it up, but you become very ethereal and disconnected from reality. And
which also plays into, I guess, the thing that you're broken and need fixing, right? Like, so say, like you can not drink and not do all these sorts of things based on I'm not good enough, and so I don't need, like I can't be.
Yeah, you can be OCD with it.
Yeah,
100%. And you think you're only there for, and that's actually interesting because that's what I did do when I started doing Vedic meditation. I made that my new cult. I had Geordie Shaw's, friendly Geordies, on my podcast, and I was telling him all this stuff, and he was like, it sounds like you're a cult hobbyist because I replaced that that mechanical mechanism in my mind where I wanted to attach my sense of, oh, that's the answer.
Yeah. Well, if you've got this extreme, say like you got this pathway and it's extreme, and then it's easy to if you've got a hole, and you replace the hole with something and you take it out, it's very easy to replace it with an extreme thing, right?
100%.
And so it's like, for me, food and my extreme eating, it's way easier. Extreme eating.
Right.
It's shuckers just then. The extreme eating then leads into like extreme dieting or extreme, like it's very hard.
So, but then what if, say for instance, you realize the cult thing, it's not a cult, but you realize that you take it away, implement no rule, so no consistency. So you like the food thing. I think people struggle without some kind of framework, could call it framework, rule. So the daily meditation thing for someone taking a month off is like throwing them back into the wild.
But that's what I think is the key. Because anyone wise that I've come across, like there's only a handful of people that I'm like, you're on it. And they're people that have this ability to, because I mean, this is to premise it, my framework, my understanding of the nature of existence is that the greatest desire is for us to evolve, and that ignorance is a mechanic for us to become aware of that evolution, and love pulls us towards that evolution. So I think for me, it's like the more different situations I can jump into, the better I'm adapting and therefore evolving. So if the least things I can grab onto and the more fluid I can be, it's like the Taoist way. It's like fluidity is life, rigidity is death, and that ability to just always be in change. And I mean, that's why I did things like with Live with Pigs, like that you come and saw me do a few years ago. That
in show notes video, it's great one.
It's like it threw me out of my comfort zone and forced me to adapt. And there's something very exciting about my brain pulling towards that. I think it's because I grew up in a framework that was so, like, your freedom was so bound, but that's what's so manipulative about it, is like you are free, shackled to this thing. That's literally the words they kind of use. And they believe that, that Jesus is bride or wife now, and all these kind of really quite preposterous things. But they're just stories, I guess. But anyway, I'm detouring.
Well, so the like the pig example, something that's pretty extreme, going to a restaurant farm or whatever and living with some pigs. It got to the point where a morning show came, like filmed you and stuff. And so that there is an extreme nature to that. You've got fond memories of that and look at that fondly. When does extreme serve you and when doesn't it serve you?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? Because when it serves me, it is giving me a sense of liberation of my thinking, or breaking down boundaries of what I thought was true, and pushing the boundaries, I guess. And when it doesn't serve me, it's kind of it's a different form of I feel like I read something recently that's about this. It's like there's two forms of not ignorance, but there's two forms of something or other. And I can't remember what it is. So I'm sorry.
No, you're right.
But I think what I'm trying to say is that like, I feel like in some cases like that, it helps you and it's great. But in some cases, you're doing it for a non-evolutionary purpose.
Well, yeah, it can be like there's multiple truths, I guess, is part of it too, which I think is, I think extreme in general is because I think I've got an extreme personality as well. And I think that it's hard as like if you are creating something or even with relationships to understand how you fit in. How do you fit in when you're bigger than the world's provided?
Do you think it's outcome focused when we think that doing something, so you're seeing ahead, right? So you go, put myself out of my comfort zone to sort of heighten my understanding or feeling. Like there is some thinking around the thing you'll get from it,
which is the outcome.
Which is the outcome.
Yeah.
But then if you don't do that, you're just a receiver of whatever the world throws at you. But then there's this balance between trying to push yourself into creating
have drive. How do you create drive without outcome?
Yeah. And so because then you don't want to just be loose as fuck and not sort of plan anything and put yourself out there or so there's it's like this paradox of
because if you're also if you're traveling, if you're wanting to go somewhere, there's comfort in sort of knowing that there is a destination or an outcome for that travel. So the idea of like if you're going from, LA to San Francisco, you know that how much time you have, and then so you can almost create stories and things and work out the parameters to then have adventure. Whereas if you don't know where you're going to end up, there's almost no parameters, no framework, no boundaries, and so then you can't actually.
That's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's exciting, but I guess it doesn't necessarily. Potentially on a long road, it can be darker.
I suppose it depends what you want to experience. I think the first example is like the best times you have in life are unexpected. I find or surprises that's what with laughter as well. Like it's always an unexpected thing. But the best nights I have is when we didn't plan it or we were going to bed and then we ended up doing this and going out here.
Yeah.
And
do you ever find you try and hack that? So it's like, oh, hey, Mish, let's go to bed. And it's like, or maybe not. Let's go out. No. That's what Uber Eats is great, right? Because it's like, it'd be outrageous to have dessert now.
Yeah.
But Uber Eats has free piccolina.
Peter Pipo?
Yeah, well, there's two of them, right?
Oh, yeah, but piccolina, that's right. Yeah, piccolina.
Which one's
Peter
which?
Pipo.
Which is which? There's one Smith's. Anyway, we don't need to get bogged down with it. I find that it's quite hard in summer because they're OG gelato. They don't hold as well. They get liquidy. Whereas,
so with your personality, saying how it's extreme, like what's your outcome for? What's your outcome? How do you remedy that, or like how do you comfort, or how do you please it, or whatever?
Well, I think it's like the draft thing, right? It's like the drafts of showing up every day, having consistent things, lowering the barrier of like what success looks like. So I think that potentially I look too far, too big, and not like. And so when I go too far, too big, the real small things that actually have impact go by the wayside. So it's things like actually being conscious about email and just like sending the email back to the or like even doing washing or those types of things where it's like, I think that in the extreme mindset, sometimes you can be like, I can't think about that. Like, I don't have time to be thinking about these small, dumb things because I'm trying to work out this big thing.
I think you've done a good job, Josh, this year of not knowing, you could say outcome, but not being able to have the answer of what something we're doing is going to bring us or do for us or
that's cool.
Evolve to. So then,
but knowing something will come out of it, right?
Well, that's it. So, but you don't know.
But we don't know what it is. So it's like a detachment of outcome, but also recognizing that this is the outcome. Like, so the thing is, if the show had to stop for whatever reason today, like if it wasn't on
good
tomorrow,
to have you on for our last episode, Jess.
But we
great
would,
to have you.
but would still love having this conversation. And that's like what you were talking with Ryan about the process. If you love the process, and it's like, okay, all of a sudden the internet goes down, we'd probably just get a campfire or whatever
and still talk.
Yeah,
because it's connect. I mean, like when I'm trying to sense what you guys love about this, and I'd suggest it might be connection. It just like having that curiosity or a space to connect with one another and connect with other people. I mean, that's what I love about with my podcast. It's just an opportunity to sit down, look in the eyes, and just connect with one another. I mean, that's what you must love doing it together with. Like your friendship must have really grown and flourished and become somewhat of a marriage, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, they're all interested, like catching up with people that I haven't seen in a long time, and then the depth you go to, like we go to with the people, it's a very unique thing. It's like this. It's so unusual.
It's quite primitive, I think. Like how we sit around fires and tell stories and share experiences and share our research.
And so, if slow is your word for the year, or you've been trying to slow it right down, what does it look like moving forward?
I think be more conscious of how I accelerate. So be aware and do it in a more content. I've done this is all like I've done contented projects before, but like be more absolutely content in what I create. I creating it for the love of the purpose of it rather than a focused outcome. And I said that so many times, but like I feel like that's such a fuck up in my brain, my thinking, where I can't do that. So
you say big, I think which is like an exciting thing, right? Which is like I think like the conversations you and I have, it's like how to create the multi-million-dollar business, right? And I've done the same thing. It's like, well, it's that whole thing. You got to make it $1 before you can make $10, and $10 before you make 100, and 100 before 1,000. And so what is some of those what's the small thing that's not outcome driven that you're excited about for 2020, do you think?
I'm making little video. I do this, making little videos that I think got somewhat of a thought-provoking, mind-expanding, liberating sense about
I love
them.
those edits that you've, what's the...
Soma Unlimited?
Yeah.
So just taking something that I think is funny and then making it more absurd and try to interweave something that makes people think differently. I think it's, I'm hoping to do some more work with Russell Brand next year as well. I've worked with him a bit in the past. And
Coming to Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so doing something...
Staying at your place.
Yeah. Doing something that that's... Like I really like his work in that sense, that it's laughter, but there's enlightened thinking interwoven with it. And I think that's, for me, that's a newer ground of content, or I guess because these are the fires. Our phones are the fires of what fires used to be. Our phones are that kind of.
And I'm a pyromaniac, 24/7.
There's always one loose unit around the fire. Always there.
Yeah.
You still here, Jeff?
So do you spend a lot of time on your phone, Jez?
No, not really. But I think just offering something into that space where everyone's attention is in this day and age, that's actually does something that helps them, but do it in a way that's fun. So you kind of appeal to their level of short attention span thinking, but you're actually delivering something that's insightful that will actually help them. I feel like that's a two-punch. Really, and I'm learning how to do that better. Like I want to do that really, really well.
What's in the platform? It's like McDonald's doing salads. You've got someone who's going in. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, a relevant platform, or like.
Well, yeah, no, like it's.
But you're
saying they've got the attention, and now they're doing something.
You've got people
good.
who are potentially unhealthy or whatever, and you're going into.
I think they're just doing it because they were pressured. We got to make this joint look a little bit healthy.
Has anyone ever had a salad from Macca's?
No, it would be crap, I reckon.
It's a drug dealer who gives his customers a bit of Panadol because they've got a headache from the night before.
Yeah.
Do they do that?
Maybe.
It's not a bad idea.
No, but I reckon I actually think that notion is because you need to be relevant.
Yeah.
If you're going to drop insightful wisdom like Dalai Lama,
it's got to do it on TikTok.
Yeah,
I would love Dalai Lama on TikTok.
Yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Like that.
But then, so like, my mum is a yogi and has meditated, for the last 50 years.
Wow.
I say to her, do you ever have a day where you're not? No. It's just, she just does it. She's not intense about it. It's just baked in. She's always just doing her meditation and yoga, and it's her life. And she has her gurus that she looks to, and Paramahansa Yogananda, he's as a guru for thousands of people around the world, old school. What he was when he was on Earth and what he is now, like it probably excels beyond what he believes probably was even capable. And so the thing is, it's interesting because it's almost still outcome focused when we're thinking that the content we're creating and being relevant to the platforms and where it goes, there is an outcome. It's like we need to get it to the people.
Yeah.
Whereas these people back in the day, no social media. They wrote books.
Yeah.
They documented their life and people around them. And you probably heard whispers of them. And now they're exceeding that, based on these platforms and stuff. And so it's a weird thing because you don't want to just
what's relevancy
write stuff on a piece of paper
it's
and
like
not have
holding it
anyone
lightly. I think it's holding it lightly, I would say, like, because you need to be relevant. Because otherwise, I mean, like if you contribute in something, it's important. I think it's worthwhile being relevant because if you contribute in something that you think will help people, it's worth taking a moment to try to appeal to their level of thinking. And that's what I think. So but it's like held loosely. It's not like I must. And that's why I like that Vedic principle, which is a bit yogi as well. And it's like you surrender preference and a desire to a particular outcome, but you hold it loosely. You know what you think will work. I think it's that lightness that is the key.
So
would you say?
Yeah, because it's a hard one because the times have changed, and so.
But you're not the platform. Hamish and Andy, like in the time that they've been there, like within sort of media and mainstream, things have changed heaps, and so like. All the principles remain the same. Like
the medium's not the monster necessarily.
Yeah. And so like you just adjust, like comedy, like that we've got all these universal truths. And so part of it is like there's things that are funny and there's things that aren't funny or there's stuff that will work potentially better on certain things. So being able to do quick, funny stuff versus sort of longer burn, slower burn type
when
stuff.
Instagram was 15-second videos. Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing is like, I mean, I think that
you had to film in the app.
Yeah.
So you had to stitch them in the okay.
And so it's like there's the universal, like I guess, even if you look at self-development, I guess what I love is even with authors, when I read a book that I really love that's been done in 2019 or 2018 or wherever it is, I want to be like, oh, when is what were they reading? Like what are they and it ends up being stuff that's super fucking old. It's like it's like Ryan Holiday with Stoicism and all that sort of thing. It's like these things are actual universal and they're just doing a great job of
making it relevant,
presenting
audience.
it. Yeah. And that's I guess what like prophets are or whatever. It's like creating a relevant message that through metaphors and all that, or real stories, however you want to view it.
Yeah,
I guess that's like part of it.
I love that. I think they're the people that are really charming. Like for me, two examples are Johnny Pollard, who's a meditation teacher, and he's taken this ancient, like I guess psychology around the mind and spirit, and made it super relevant and so charming, and like just the way it feels such little ego in his teaching. That he just feels so you gravitate towards him. And also Empower, who's an incredible Tantra teacher, which is not all sexual, it's just living life to the fullest essentially and understanding, having greater self-awareness. But she does it in such an attractive way that you're so charmed by it. And I think that there's so many teachers out there in terms of the spiritual and personal development.
What is it called? Tantra?
Tantra
What
is
did you
love.
say? Not sexual. I didn't even know.
Tantric sex.
Because tantric sex
I don't
is
even know what tantric sex is. What is tantric? Should I do tantric sex? What is it? Tell me about it.
It's with us. I mean, Tantra is more like a.
Look it up, 97, please.
I've only done a couple of workshops, so I don't know a heap, but it's essentially about understanding your body's energy centers and understanding how you can communicate with another person and their love languages and da-di-da-di-da.
So 97,
So
what is the definition? What are you finding?
Sex?
So it's a holistic practice. It's not about sex or orgasm. It's about the journey you take to get there.
Maybe that could be sort of...
Lifehack boy.
Yeah, Lifehack. So Mr. 97 he's got a club for 2020 and it's the Lifehacker Club. So looking at different sort of things
That's
that
cool.
Lifehacker Club could do That sounds
very
interesting.
outcome focused. In what do I get?
That's why. But what I love about this, it's not outcome because it's all about the journey. Is that what they said?
Yeah. I mean, so it's a Western variation of Tantra associated with new religious movements.
Is it foreplay?
No, it's actually non-orgasm. I mean, like the main thing I learned.
I mean, foreplay doesn't have to have orgasms in it.
The sex is
I always
optional.
orgasm at foreplay.
Really? No, that's okay.
I mean, if it's good enough, sometimes. But maybe then it's not.
No, but it's not foreplay.
That doesn't count as foreplay.
No.
Yeah, true. So it's only foreplay if it's before the play.
Before the ejaculation.
Why is it spelled with FOUR, like four?
FOR. How do you spell foreplay?
FORE.
Yeah, it is foreplay.
Yeah.
Four. Is that like before?
Can you look up the word foreplay?
Yeah, four.
Stand by.
This is interesting.
I mean,
what's the
sexual activity that precedes intercourse.
So it's the sexual activity. So I guess the thing about that, what's it called again? The Tantra isn't necessarily sexual.
No, but
Could be dinner.
a big component, a component of it is like enjoying the pleasure component of sex without having orgasm, particularly for men, and then the multiple buttons on a woman and understanding those.
Is one of the chakras a sexual?
Yeah, the root chakra. Like, so then it's a lot to do with breathing exercises so you don't get blue balls essentially. So you breathe, you send the energy up to higher chakras so you can just go for it longer.
Feel it in the chest.
Yeah.
Really? So this is like a, what's it called? What's it called if you ejaculate quickly?
Premature.
So this is a potential mechanism but a mechanism. So if rather than taking a nasal spray or something, you could potentially
how is that
move
going?
The chakra thing. Maybe I take that for my sinuses.
Do you want to? I've got a position.
Yeah.
Do you want me to describe it?
Yeah.
Okay. This is called the lotus.
Sorry, Jess. This is what we do.
Step 1: have your partner sit cross-legged.
Okay.
Sit on your partner's upper thighs and cross your ankles behind their back.
Okay.
Breathe in sync and stare into each other's eyes.
Okay, great.
Or you can do it by yourself. Sit cross-legged with your back straight. Place your palms on your knees. Begin to breathe slowly and deeply.
So it's meditation essentially.
Yeah. And it's basically like cultivating deep connections. There's a lot of eye gazing and stuff, but a lot of it is essentially like withstanding from orgasm. So you can actually charge yourself a lot of that energy. Like the more you don't come, the more like energy you can, you actually feel a greater amount of vital energy in your day. It's very interesting. I would try once I learned about it, I was like, this is ridiculous that I always.
This is like the No Nut November thing.
Yeah, it is a bit. It actually is. Yeah.
So I
think it came from this stuff.
So do you try so have you pared back the amount of times you're coming then in a week?
Yeah, so you don't.
Is that removing masturbation?
No, you do that, but then
you're a monster.
Hang on, wait.
We do it to charge. It's like a battery charge.
So you don't orgasm, but you masturbate.
Yeah. So you don't do it to material. You do it. You do it for longer, and you don't. The intention is not to climax. So you just ride this wave that essentially looks like a graph. So if you eventually your pleasure curves. Because you never climax. It's like this. It's like that. You know that
like
point
building
of no
a
return?
load, essentially.
Yeah, building a load. I mean,
seriously.
Kind of. Yeah, where the higher you bring this pleasure curve and drop, and then ride it again and drop, and never climax, that pleasure curve ends up being like way higher than an orgasm would be if you just busted a nut.
Okay.
So you
same feeling.
So yeah, same sense. It's insane. Like it's almost psychedelic.
Wait, you're saying that it feels like without busting a nut? That's the term, isn't it? So
without ejaculate, you can have an orgasm without ejaculating. That's what
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, how do you know? What's the difference? How do I know?
So it's like a full body sensation. Like when a really good,
and you know the difference between because I guess my concern would be that I fucking think one's the other and I just end up ejaculating, right?
No, yeah, it's fascinating. I really encourage people to try it because it's
so how do we start if we want to start? Not now.
Should we do it now?
I sort of set myself up like we're going to start.
No, do you know what I think?
It's riding a pleasure wave rather than looking at for an outcome. It's the same shit we're talking about. Like enjoying the process and keep riding that process curve, and never having that outcome means that like you have way more energy, like vital energy in the day.
Wet dreams.
that you can curb that by like not setting intentions before you sleep, not pleasuring yourself before you sleep, all these kind of things.
Well, think about young men, maybe women, but men masturbating to pornography quick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How quickly can I get it done, sort of thing?
It's a great example.
Which then leads to the premature ejaculation stuff. It's like you're geared to as soon as you have sex, I want to come. Like, and so that's I've done this stuff before.
Yeah.
I've done doing some
Just
reading.
testing.
Well, you push it out.
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
like because most young men's pattern would be wank, 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 come, do porn quickly because I need to get done. I got 6 of these to get through for today, and I really like this
Why
porn.
is such a quiet day?
And so then the opposite is don't let it happen to you. Not that familiar, so it's not always familiar with the ejaculation.
Yeah, you change your relationship to the pleasure.
It's super interesting.
It's super interesting, dude. And the more you start doing it, you're like, this is ridiculous, and I've never done this before. Because,
why aren't people talking about this?
because
it's all this new age shit. Like it gets like woo wooed, and it gets like even No Nut November. There's so much like ignorant talk around it, but that's the fun of it. That's
What's the ignorant bit?
Like just a lack of understanding about the intention.
Why you're actually doing it.
Why you're actually doing it. Like it's like, why would you not bust a nut? Like men are made to bust nuts, and I think I just saw some real like testosterone fueled, don't take my fucking orgasm away from me shit. I think it, and what I'm saying, like the non-ignorant approach is understanding like that it's about like connection and a deeper. It's really psychedelic. Like the most psychedelic I've had during meditation and during sex, compared to and then doing acid and DMT.
So what's the how many
you've got close to it without substance?
Which I think is really important to know.
how many sort of days have you gone in a row of like the build up where you are self-pleasuring but not busting a nut?
About 4 weeks.
4 weeks,
Nothing crazy. But people do it for like a lot longer than that. I'm new to this. So I only started doing this Tantra stuff about 3 or 4 months ago. But it's something that a lot of people would like naturally do with a really good partner anyway. It's not like it's just building framework and thinking and practices around it that makes you expand your ability to do it more. But no doubt, like, you know, a lot of people do Tantra like sex just because they're really in the moment with their partner.
Great.
It's a 97. It's a lot for you, isn't it, young man? Yeah. Maybe think twice before busting your nuts.
No, I appreciate it.
Great. I love it.
Meditation. You've been generously doing workshops and teaching people. Is it Vedic meditation?
It's kind of like that. It's a bit like TM, a bit like Vedic meditation. It's basically a mantra-based meditation where you hold your awareness on this mantra, which is a Sanskrit sound. That mantra is just a mind vehicle, and you just have your awareness on it for 20 minutes twice a day, and it allows you to sink into. It's like a weight in the ocean. It allows you to sink into deeper states of what you are, or deeper experience of what you are. And the more you familiarize yourself with I would say the baseline of what you are, which is just innocent beingness, the more you can witness all the higher levels of thinking, the neurotic continual thought patterns that are all unconscious that we don't like. Isn't it Freud that said like 95% of our intention is, or our behavior is motivated from the unconscious, I think. So it's like when you sink into these deeper states of being or experiencing your beingness, you kind of have an ability to watch and observe and analyze, I guess, or reflect on all this unconscious behavior that you're acting from. And I think it's insane because it's insane to me that we don't prioritize that more in society because we're running around like being motivated and acting from a fucking huge part of ourselves that we're not even aware we're doing. Like you speak to some people sometimes and that just like
just reacting and responding.
It's all reaction and not really listening. And again, this is Tantra stuff. Is really focused on listening. Like, and there's a bunch of other things that talk about this stuff. But like it's having the ability to listen, which is obviously what you guys do as well, because you have to do it in this space. To be a good listener, you really have to let go of your reaction to what they're saying and almost like your eyes are completely on their brain innocently absorbing their experience without this compulsive thing to, oh yeah, and I did that once or whatever, you know?
Well, like the answer's not more stimulus or information. So but that's the age we're in, right? And so people don't need more thought.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
actually stepping back to observe the 60,000 plus thoughts we have a day.
Yeah, we've already got.
That we already have.
Yeah, we've got to,
even if we
don't
didn't
need more toys. Use the toys that you've got in your fucking toy room.
No, don't even use them. Look at them from the door.
Actually, sort them first.
Sure. But then step to the door. You got to step to the door
Stack
and
them
look
up.
at them.
Yeah.
And then think about what are these things?
I think it's okay to enter the door, potentially move them around, adjust them, but get out. I think you need to be in and out. If you spend all day in the toy room, it's not healthy.
True.
But even like, so
Yeah.
We're a parenting podcast as well.
like getting super deep with it. I've been doing this practice in Sam Harris's app where he gets you to look at an object. And so we're the subject and the object's over there.
Yeah.
The camera right here is the object. Focus on the object. So you're putting, however we do that, however we focus, you're doing that. And then look to the object. Where is that focus coming from? And it's like, I don't have the answer. I don't even fucking know, but it just, what it does is his purpose is to become one with it all rather than have it as an object over there.
So it's almost like, is it potentially like looking
so
at a camera or whatever?
Look at an object, a camera, Mr. 97, and then take the focus away from looking at Mr. 97 to reverse look back at
I love that.
who is doing the focusing. But
So-
then on top of that, it is what is the fucking focusing bit?
Yeah.
What is that whole thing?
Well, that's truth. That's perspective. That's like the multiple truths, right? It's like you're having a different experience, Jez, than what Tommy is and than what I have. And that's why like it's so fucking dumb to argue all the time because everyone's truth is different.
And then what's behind that? Thought of even that it being the truth.
Exactly, man. This is fascinating because this is what the Vedic people talk about as like the witnessing the witnessed. And once you go through that cycle enough times, your brain goes, and that's what they said. That's when ignorance got formed. It's like evolution of nature needed ignorance in order to have an experience of witness in itself. If we can't, which is we get real trippy and always gives me goosebumps thinking about this shit. But like when you break the cycle of what you're saying, which is you're a field of consciousness having an experience witnessing a thing that's being witnessed, and you go, but then what is that? What's behind the seat that's witnessing? It's like the seat of the soul, or what's behind the witness, and
where is that?
Where is that?
Yeah,
it always fucks you up because it's like whoa, like it's real, like it makes your brain go.
Yeah, because
if you go on it deep enough for long enough, you really fuck your brain up.
Because what we want is an answer of where is that witness? Where is that? Is it up here in our head? Like where is it in our consciousness?
What's easy?
And then there's no real fucking where is the answer?
But we do know the more you quiet yourself, the more you can familiarize yourself with what it is. The answer isn't thinking more. The answer is quieting, de-exciting more to have the ability to discern neurotic, consistent, irrelevant patterns that we're doing and quiet them all down so you have the ability to actually watch because that's where you find the answers, I think. I mean, it is where I found my answers in those quiet moments.
I love it.
Jeremy Carne, thank you for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me. That gave me goosebumps towards the end. Talking about
really? Was it the no nut stuff? Were you just entering a chakra?
I actually busted in that one.
I'm not the only one. All right, it's the Daily Talk Show. Hi, thedailytalkshow.com is the email address. Type in Jeremy Carne on Apple Podcasts and or even Spotify. I'm guessing you're on Spotify.
Yeah,
all those places. Check out his podcast. Otherwise, see you tomorrow, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks.